All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Syncari's Coffee with Customers. I'm joined today by Eric, one of our customers from Demostack. And Eric, thank you so much for being with us here today. If you wouldn't mind just giving the audience a quick intro to yourself and to Demostack, that'd be awesome.
Sure, yeah. I'm Eric, the head of revenue operations at Demostack. Demostack's a demo experience platform. We specialize in replicating your SaaS product and creating high fidelity clones and demo environments that are easy to maintain, update, and customize for your prospects.
Yeah, sounds like something Syncari needs. The land of standardizing demos for AEs is ripe with opportunity. So absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Eric, if you wouldn't mind to kick things off, right? Like, what were some of the business challenges that you were facing that made you start to look for, a solution like Syncari?
Yeah, there's a couple. So the primary one was we have in our go-to-market teams, the need to communicate directly with our product and R&D teams during the pre-sale cycle. One thing we noticed is that communication was becoming a little disparate between systems, Salesforce and Jira. So we needed a really good way to connect those two systems, get data and communication flowing back and forth. Our goal was to keep go-to-market in Salesforce, product and R&D in Jira. So we needed them to be able to input and view information in their own systems. We had future state in mind as well. We don't like to make purchases just for one small or one issue. We want to make sure that the purchasing decision is going to be for scale. And we were also looking for a system that could help us get our product data from BigQuery and Mixpanel back into Salesforce so we can make expansion decisions as well. That's ultimately what led us to Syncari.
Great. Absolutely. I think the difference between a point solution to solve a point problem and a platform that can solve, myriad problems across the enterprise is something that is well understood by, IT practitioners and people that are used to having to build to solve problems. I think it is, I'll call it coming of age in the operations community, just because we've been almost like trained to buy point solutions to point problems because that's been all that's available to us for so long. So back to the data challenge that you were facing, right? Like, what was the data that your sales team, that your product team needed access to that they didn't have?
Yeah, so during our pre-sale cycle, we enter into POCs, and the nature of our business, our platform is super customizable and very dependent on the prospect's technology. So there are lots of configurability changes that need to be made. We often need to involve our product or R&D team for new features that are being released. So the data specifically was around like issues that come up, feature requests, feature gaps, and then different parts of the product that would need to be turned on. But due to our current state of product maturity, like it requires R&D resources to do at the moment. The data that the sales team really needed to help with their deal cycles was around effort level from the R&D team, timelines. So when is something going to get done, the sprint that the ticket was going into, and then statuses. Who's working on it? When's it going to be done? What current stage is it in? Having that data free flowing between the systems allows us to make better business decisions, so we can see the statuses of all tickets related to a specific deal at a specific moment.
Yeah, makes sense. And when you think about the net outcome of that visibility, right? Like, how do you verbalize that for folks, or how do people internally think about that relative to the sales process?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like dollar value and effort level. So the R&D team can see the impact of one ticket in the deal value. So passing the ARR or the ACV over to Jira into the product system, like they can report on, hey, we have 10 tickets that are worth this amount of money right now if we fix them by the end of the month. Hugely impactful, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Slightly off topic, but related. I was just reading this report that said that sharing KPIs and metrics across go-to-market teams results in faster revenue growth, right? It's like, because you're aware of not just your KPIs, but other teams' KPIs, and you might have a slightly different viewpoint on how to solve them. But you wouldn't, that action or that activity or that insight would never be triggered if you never saw the data. ARR being a perfect one, right?
Yeah, I mean,
so.
Demostack's a startup, and it's important for us to all realize that every team is involved in sales, and customer experience and expansion. So all of everything we do is to provide not just a great customer prospect experience, but to help retain and grow customers. So yeah, I mean, tying KPIs together across teams is hugely impactful. We're doing that right now, which is great, great.
Awesome. So if you don't mind, let's get into the product and yeah, showcase how Syncari helped you solve some of these problems.
Yeah, let me share my screen. All right, here we are.
Okay.
Our Synapse Studio.
Yeah, so for the what's the word, familiar eye, help people understand what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so we're looking at the Syncari Synapse Studio. So these are all of the different connection points that we have Syncari connected to. So you'll see kind of in the bottom left here, our main connection is Salesforce, and then on the top, half dome, it's Jira. And so you'll notice we have 4 different Jira synapses connected. One's inactive. This was old. We just haven't deleted it yet. And then 3 are related to specific projects that we have Salesforce cases associated with in Jira.
Okay. And if we take that to the next level, right? Like, how are you using these connections to actually automate some workflows in your business? If you wouldn't mind showing us one of those workflows, that'd be great.
Let me go into our Sync Studio here. I'm going to go into case to issue. This is our main workflow. This is the logic tree that we have for what gets synced from Jira to Salesforce, and then also from Salesforce to Jira. So if I go to the 3 that you see here related to those 3 synapses that we saw earlier, they're all relatively similar, but just for the purposes of this, I'll go into the first one. So we have a Salesforce or Jira project called Internal Services, and we have tickets that get created specifically in here that might need to go into Salesforce. So we have this condition filter that says, hey, if there's no case ID, so meaning that it came from Jira originally, and that we have the sync to Salesforce button equals true, that 10152 is Jira's way of saying true. Then we sync it to Salesforce. We create a net new case in Salesforce, and then we relate it to the account that it's related to. So we attach that record to Salesforce. And then the bottom line here is kind of the reverse of that. It's a case that originates in Salesforce. We check to see if it has what we call the customer lifecycle object. This means that there's an opportunity assigned to it and it's in our deal funnel. And then if this is true, if it's not empty, and the do not sync to Salesforce is false, meaning that it didn't originate in Jira, then we create a Jira ticket to it. And the filters we have on the right side here are what determine which Jira project we sync it to.
Okay, so the left-hand logic is defining what syncs into Syncari
Right.
to create that unified record, and then the right-hand side is what is defining what gets pushed back or pushed into Salesforce and ultimately back into Jira. How have you thought about at a field level what is synced bidirectionally and what maybe just gets pushed into Syncari?
Yeah, so if we go into the kind of the hub here, sync to issue, and go into our manage our field map, I can show you the fields that we have. Basically, if it's a field that needs to get filled out by somebody on the product or R&D team, we don't want the sales team or anybody in the go-to-market team messing with that field in Salesforce. So we keep a lot of those as not bidirectional, sync from Syncari, meaning that this field, let's look at one that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so the CLC complexity, this is one that only we want the team in the Jira side to fill out. So basically, if you were to update this in Salesforce, it would go into Syncari, and then Syncari would say, actually, you can't update this, and it would update it back. It's kind of, it's sometimes a fun way of not allowing people to make updates because they can, and then 5 minutes later, it changes back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty common problem, right? How do you control for data authority in some of these workflows? And this is just your way of defining Jira as the data authority for certain fields.
Right. And like if we're talking about managing multiple systems, you know, if you say you have 5 different systems with one unique record that needs to sync between all of them, creating a list or creating like field level rules in each system just gets overwhelming, challenging. But doing that from a data perspective in Syncari, like this is your source of record, your source of truth. So you know that each system is going to be populated with the data from the system that's supposed to maintain it.
So powerful. And how have you used Syncari to get, how have you used Syncari to get visibility into some of these data changes?
Yeah, so we've noticed with the increased visibility across the different platforms, like I think one big learning we had is finding more gaps in the process. So our first gap was the systems didn't talk to each other. The second gap was, all right, the systems are talking to each other, but are we evaluating ourselves and our teams on the right metrics? Are we able to merge different like tickets together, or are we just creating a lot of noise? One thing we noticed is that when you allow sales teams to create tickets directly for R&D teams, there's a lot of noise and requires like a technical resource to be the one who kind of bridges that gap. So we went out and started building out a technical team for pre-sales. That was a big learning, big finding for us. Yeah. The other, you know, like, so there's just those gaps like that become highlighted in the data, just allow you to make faster decisions.
Yeah, and in our prep, right, we talked about the visibility that Syncari gives you into the actual transactions moving across systems. So if you might go into it's the log view, I think.
Oh, sorry, go into the log view.
Yeah. So what does this view enable you to do?
Yeah. So when we first started syncing data between Salesforce and Jira, we were in here every day. We were looking, just making sure that we had 3 reports up in front of us every day. We had the number of tickets created in Salesforce, the number of tickets created in Jira, and then the number of tickets or the number of records that we saw in Syncari. We got to a point where it was a 1-to-1-to-1 match. Everything was flowing. It was working great. We still use this to look at errors or to dig into the data when things might have an issue. But if we look at this one record, I think, from a RevOps perspective, I'm always looking for systems that have really good auditing. And it allows you to like trace where either issues occur or to answer questions of like, why did this update this way versus, we had a lot of those questions when our integration user was the user in the system that was updating records. And we could just come in here, figure out what the old values were, why it potentially didn't pass through. So, here's just an owner, Salesforce owner ID and owner ID that changed. If I go back, yeah.
I was just going to say that visibility just gives you confidence that you're able to resolve any issues that might occur, because hey, every process is going to have issues. Nothing's going to run perfectly because data is imperfect. So
yeah,
awesome.
and I love the way this is formatted. Like you have your source value. So in this case, it's Jira. You have your old value, and then you have the winning value. So what actually came out. So, and then the destination. So Salesforce, we can see here the resolution from done to won't do. The new value in Salesforce is now won't do. And then it updated the created timestamp as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind going to Sync Studio now. Yeah, sorry, Synapse Studio is where I meant to direct you.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk about the future. What do you have planned next for Syncari?
Yeah, so our next big thing, like I mentioned at the beginning, was getting our product data synced from, right now we have it in we have BigQuery. We also have Mixpanel with the potential to move into a bigger data lake in the future. From there into Salesforce, so we can start making expansion and growth decisions for the sales and CS teams. So now the goal, we have this versioned out. Our V1 is to get all the data into Google Sheets and then Google Sheets into Salesforce. If we scroll down on the right here, Google Sheets gives us a really simple ability to just test the data in an easy way before making the direct connection with BigQuery. Also gives us the ability to really get complex with how we're aggregating the data, how we're creating monthly kind of usage records, and then building, as we saw in the Sync Studio earlier, we can build the workflows and automation on different pieces of the product data. So there's a lot for us to think about. We're on V0 right now. V1 is coming next week with the Google Sheet.
So Eric, in our prep, you talked about the importance of getting data into the systems where people are actually working, right? If you wouldn't mind just repeating some of that insight for the audience, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so if we go into kind of a modern like go-to-market product tech stack, you have 15 different systems that house, different pieces of the same story, and require input or visibility into. So when I'm thinking of a go-to-market team, Salesforce and even HubSpot pitch their products as the only place a salesperson needs to be. And you completely disregard that when you say you need to be in Salesforce, but also like any issue you have with your pipeline, you need to go into Jira to manage that. Becomes time consuming and expensive. Now we have to have the entire sales team as users in Jira. And then if the product team or the R&D team want any visibility into the customer, now they need Salesforce licenses. And now you have to train them on how to use Salesforce. And both systems are beasts, right? Like you can't just go into each one and figure it out in 2 minutes. So that's training, that's time and resources that go into making sure everybody has the right views and understands what they're looking at. So keeping them in the system that they're actually working out of, and keeping the consistency and, hey, when I create an issue, these are the 2 fields I always have to fill out. and it goes, and I know it goes to the right person. Makes it simple. Like, it's that decision paralysis, I think is the thing. Like, hey, if I have to make X amount of decisions a day, by the end of the day, I'm exhausted. If I can take out some of that decision making from R&D, from the sales team, one less decision quantified over the entire day, that could be 30 decisions that they don't have to make.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And
that's why Steve Jobs only wore black shirts, right?
Mhm.
One decision he didn't have to make.
Yeah, so true. And when you think about, point solutions versus platforms, going back to what we talked about in the beginning, right? Like, hey, an option for you here was just selecting the native integration between Salesforce and Jira, right? Like, how did you think about that decision?
Yeah, so the native, I guess it's not really a native solution, but it was restrictive. Like it could do the sync one way, and we didn't know how we were going to need to sync the data in 2 months. Like, we're an evolving company, changes happen very quickly. And then also, we knew that we needed a product syncing to happen. And if we just went with the native Jira Salesforce solution, then we'd have to go find an alternative solution for product to sales. And keeping things aggregated in one system or maintained in one system means that, again, for the person who's responsible for maintaining these synapses and these pipelines, like, one less decision, one less place they have to go, one less system they have to learn. It's all in one place,
Yeah, makes sense. So in closing, Eric, if you were to give advice to people who are looking at Syncari relative to other solutions in the market, of which there are many, what advice would you give them?
I would really try to understand where you're going to be in like the next 6 to 9 months or even a year. And if you're looking at a solution that can do one thing, and maybe that one thing is a pipeline from source to data warehouse, you're probably going to need to get the data out of the warehouse somewhere else too. So why not just have it flow directly through one system instead of 2 or 3?
Awesome. Really appreciate your time. Those are some awesome insights that you shared with the group. Appreciate, again, everything you've done to push on our product team as well. So appreciate you as a customer. And
thanks, Aaron.
good luck with your garage installation. Fun little workshop, at least, that you're building, or workbench.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's in our driveway right now.
Okay, go check it out. Cool. All right, Eric.
All right, thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.